Sergeant of the Canadian Regiment of Fencible Infantry. The Guards will now wheel around out into the field, led by the Corps of Drums. We can imagine, of course, in the 19th century, in the War of 1812, full battalions out there. A battalion could be up to 500 troops, so these squads are fairly small by those standards. There are some subtle differences in the uniforms, as I pointed out. You'll notice the Fort York Guard, the guys with the yellow cuffs and collars, are wearing white trousers and short black gaiters. The Fort George Guard, representing the 41st Regiment, are dressed a little differently, wearing white breeches and high black gaiters. Their costume reflects the uniforms of the early War of 1812, so from 1810 to about 1813. There are some subtle changes in uniforms in the Canadas. Right now our troops are wheeling into line. As you can appreciate, in the 19th century, most of the tactics took place in line, and that was a function and feature of the type of firearms that they were carrying. Our soldiers today are carrying flintlock muskets, the British service arm used from the 1720s until about the 1840s. These muskets weigh about 9 pounds apiece and fire black powder, which is an organic mixture of charcoal, sulfur, and saltpeter. At the side of the weapon, there's a flintlock mechanism which ignites a small charge of powder on the outside, leading to the inside charge, and as a result, forcing the ball out. They're 75 caliber, although the ball that they fire is slightly smaller, around 69 to 70 caliber, and this is to allow for loading ease and the amount of fouling that occurs inside the barrel as they fire. They're fairly inaccurate. They're not actually rifles. They're smooth bore, just like a hunk of pipe. The smooth inside is our outside. And so it's very important that the troops fire them all together, hurling a wall of lead at the enemy. We're going to show a few different types of tactical maneuvers here first. There are some subtle differences in the guys. If you look at them, some of them have tufts that are white on top of their caps. Those are grenadiers. Some of them have dark green tufts. Those are the light infantrymen. These are guys who normally take a place on the left-hand side of the line. And you also see some half red and half white tufts, and those are the battalion company soldiers. Right now our troops are opening up into open order, and they're going to demonstrate some light infantry tactics. Soldiers didn't always line up and fire in line. Sometimes they broke up and set themselves up in pairs. Reduce here their vulnerability by getting down low and load and fire together in pairs. They're essentially adopting a skirmisher mode here. And the fog of war begins. The rear rank makes their way up behind while the rear rank loads again. You can see again they are kneeling down, reducing their vulnerability. In the case of a real battlefield, they might even have some cover that they could take advantage of. Today, not much cover. Our soldiers today right now are firing independently as skirmishers. Well, again, while the rear rank loads, the front rank moves up. The muskets themselves do have a bit of a misfire rate issue. When the air is moist, the powder is affected by the dampness, and occasionally you'll get up to a 20% misfire rate. Soldier carries an ammunition ball pouch on their hip, and depending upon the pattern that was issued to them, could be as few as 32 rounds and as many as 60 rounds of ammunition. Today, of course, we're firing blank rounds for everybody's interest. Right now, it says that they're firing independently, marking their target, and on their own time firing. You notice the duty drummers and fifers behind the line as well. And a good smoke ring there. Rear rank moves up. This is what we might today call an advanced contact maneuver, or tactic. Hopefully by this point they've scared the enemy and they've long since taken off the battlefield. There's just a little bit of firing going on here. You can see the amount of smoke produced. This is why troops in the 19th century dressed in very bright colors to distinguish themselves and to let the commander see exactly what. Now we're going to fire retiring. We've gone about as far as we can. The enemy obviously is making their way a little bit closer to us than comfort would allow. So the front rank is returned to the rear, and we will fire retiring. At the far right-hand side of the field, you'll also notice an artillery crew is taken to the field. They're loading and firing a 3-pounder. The 3-pounder is actually a battalion support gun, very popular in the 1790s, but the War of 1812 had sort of fallen out of favor for larger caliber guns like the 6-pounder.
Yeah. The first night, we'll go.
I should notice with our Glengarry Light Infantrymen here on the far left-hand side, we have a representative of
I'm scared.
The Crown's native.
Is it really loud? Because I got sensitive ears for
Yeah, it's pretty loud.
Is he going to warn us?
Hope so.
Did he warn the first time?
Yeah.
Okay.
A good trained infantryman could load and fire his musket or firelock 3 to 4 times a minute. As you can see, the line is retiring back behind the safety of the muzzle of the 3-pounder artillery piece on the far right-hand side. For those who are interested, 3-pounder simply means that it's bored out to fire a 3-pound solid round shot ball, about the size of a large peach. However, there's different ammunition that can be fired out of this artillery piece, including canister shot, essentially a tin can full of lead musket balls, turning the cannon into a large shotgun or an anti-personnel weapon. The Fort George Guard today, representing the 41st Regiment, of course, was the regiment of Sir Isaac Brock, who met his untimely death in October of 1812 at the Battle of Queenston Heights. 41st, by and large, the largest British regular unit in the Canadas during the period. You will notice a few misfires there. As the weapon continues to be fired, fouling occurs on the lock mechanism and on the hammer, the dull. The flint gets a little bit dull, less spark is produced, and so we find some of our troops retiring still with a loaded musket. Our artillery piece is getting ready to load. We're loading this today in slow time. Obviously, we're doing everything in the interest of safety. On a battlefield, it would occur at a much greater rate. I would prepare you that the 3-pounder is fairly loud.
Okay, it's going to go.
For the record, that's actually a fairly small charge in that 3-pounder. The general rule of thumb is about 1/3 of the ball weight, so we're only about 6 ounces of powder there, about half of it. And there's a volley, so the enemy is now making their way towards us, and so we've decided to start heaving large walls of lead at the enemy by firing all at once. This is the standard tactic for most of the Western armies of the period. They're going to load and fire again. You notice the artillery on the right-hand side is going through the process of cleaning out, dousing or sponging